Is there a way that we can tell that the market is currently in its uptrend? In a growing market, naturally the market will be uptrend. And this is what I call in its growth stage. Before we get into the structure to study if the market is currently in its uptrend, let's look at the definition of an uptrend. Its prices should be already trending up, as the market has an expectation of a continuous strong earnings and growth prospect. And let's look at the structure. I want you to take a few moments to observe what are the characteristics of an uptrend. Could you see that? Each new high, it is higher than its previous high. And each new low, it is also higher than its previous low. Typically, there are three phases in every growth stage: the beginning, the maturity, and sometimes it gets a little bit euphoric. Ideally, the best timing to get into a stock or a market is during its beginning phase and its maturity phase. Of course, we still can get into the market when it is at its euphoric phase, but we have to exercise a lot of caution. And that's the objective of the whole program here, is how to identify that the previous bear is losing its momentum and is gaining momentum into its early phase of a growth stage. And during the growth stage, sometimes it will get a little bit euphoric. How are we going to tell the bull is losing its momentum to a confirmation that a downtrend has been developed? Let's look at a case study to identify the characteristic of an uptrend. And this is Apple monthly chart, and in every growing market or stocks, there are three phases. Before we study into Apple's uptrend or its growth stage, let's look at the identity of a growing company. And in every growing company or stock, there are three stages as well. I call them the income stage, the value stage, and the growth stage. Let me just repeat this. In every growing stock or growing company, there are three stages. It's income stage, it's value stage, and growth stage. And income stage, I define it as stable companies with stable dividends and not too concerned about market volatility. And not all the company will develop into value of growth stage, because some of the company will prefer to maintain as an income stage to continuously receive dividends. However, if the company have the desire to go into growth, before growth, there's value. And value is what I define as companies that are already trading significantly below its fair value as it is entering into its growth stage. And value stage come before growth. And usually its price behavior, it is pretty telling. And you could see that somewhere around 2006, for the first time it breached above about $2.60. And this is the time that where you see value that not many people see. And as time progresses, this company enter into its growth stage. And like what I said earlier, in growth stage, there are three phases: the beginning phase, the maturity phase, and later the euphoric phase. And again, ideally, the best timing to enter into a growth stage is during the beginning phase, the maturity phase, and of course, we still can get into the euphoric phase, but we have to exercise a lot of caution if the market is already euphoric. And let's look at the characteristic of this growth stage. Can you see that each high, each new high, it is higher than its previous high? This high, this high, this high, and this high. And if you compare to its previous high, they are all higher than its previous high. And also, each low, it is higher than its previous low. This low, this low, this low, and this low. They are all higher than its previous low. In the later segment, we will discuss and study what are the indications market will be pointing out to us before and at the beginning of a growth stage. How to tell if the market is currently in its downtrend. In a weakening market, downtrend develops, and this is what I call the declining stage. And before we get into studying the structure of the declining stage, let me define what is downtrend. Its prices should be already trending down, as the market is disappointed with its earnings, expecting a weaker growth prospects, or an unexpected event that affects its future direction. And I want you to take a few moments to observe the characteristics of a downtrend. And we could see that the new low, it is lower than its previous low. And each new high, it is also lower than the previous high. And for that, it forms a downtrend. And this is what we studied earlier with Apple in its growth stage. Will it ever enter into a declining stage? While there's many possibility that it may happen, never say never. It could be because of the changes in its core belief in its company. It produces many disappointing results and earnings, and there's a lot of expectation on a weaker growth ahead. Or it could be on an unexpected news. Apple has entered into a declining stage. But for whatever reason, I believe before it enters into a declining stage, into its downtrend, usually its price and its behavior will give us a lot of telltale signs. Let's look at the next example. And this is Top Glove, a daily chart. It is a Malaysian company, and who they are the number one top producer of medical gloves. And we could see that somewhere after 2020, because of the pandemic, this company entered into its value stage. And you still remember how I define value stage? They are companies that are already trading significantly below its fair value as it is entering into its growth stage. And just to recap, we could see that during its growth stage, the new high, it is higher than its previous high. And the new low, it is higher than its previous low. And of course, ideally, we hope that we could enter into the market at the beginning of its growth stage. But how to identify that it is in its declining stage? And we could see that its structure of the pricing, it is very obvious. Each new low, it is lower than the previous low. And each new high, it is also lower from its previous high. And what was the trigger for the market from a growth stage to enter into a declining stage? In this example of the declining stage, it was because of an unexpected event. Factories belonging to Top Glove were found to be a major source of COVID-19 infections in late 2020. And after that, you could see that the market started to develop into its downtrend. But before that, is there any telltale signs that this growth stage, towards its end, it is losing its momentum? And we're going to study into that in the later segments.